there is another feature built into this oscillator, because it actually has a secondary oscillator built in, which is also voltage controlled, which is hard synced to the first oscillator. That basically means that this second oscillator, so if this is the waveform of the first oscillator, the sawtooth, then the second oscillator produces probably something like a triangle wave. But at the moments of the transient, this second oscillator is forced back to restart again. And the effect of that is that you get sort of like a very strong flanging kind of sound in your output. But if you do this in the traditional way, where you use two separate oscillators and the second one is hard synced to the first one, then basically what you hear in the sound is two things. One thing is this sort of flanging kind of sound, which is really nice. The other thing is that you will have a gradient, a transient here. I just remembered myself that I have to say transient because it's gradient. And this little transient here is different if you change the pitch of the second oscillator. It becomes louder and softer and louder and softer. That means that if you make sort of like what they call a sync sweep, you don't only hear this really nice flanging kind of sound, you also hear this transient louder and softer and louder and softer, and that is a very unpleasant effect in the sound. So in this oscillator, the reason why I integrated this secondary oscillator within this oscillator, because that gives me the opportunity, the possibility to suppress that transient here. And the way I do that is very simple, because I actually make this sawtooth into a positive only sawtooth and use it as an envelope over the synced sound. And then when you listen to that sound, let's not listen to the filter. That means that we go here. You can change the waveform of the secondary oscillator from a triangle wave to a sawtooth wave. Really high. And the fun is if you go really low, then now clearly hear that the first sawtooth is used as the envelope on the second. Instant techno.
Rob, can you disable the VCA part of that so that you retain the transient?
Well, actually, I isolated this transient and then use it to feed into a sample and hold, and that voltage is fed out on a separate output here, which was actually the sound that you were first hearing, which basically means that only if you change the pitch of the second, you sample another sound and you suddenly hear it.
So this is the filtered transients that you've removed from the main oscillator.
Yeah. So if you would want to know what the sound originally sounds like,
You can mix the two outputs.
which I probably better do like this. It should be like this. Then I just mix the two outputs. So now you can clearly hear that. It really pays off to remove that transient. So, then, why, you may ask, do you feed that into a sample and hold and make it available as an output? Well, that is because if you can use this output sample to actually sort of modulate the module, and then, so if I take it as an output, and for instance I put it into the pitch input of the secondary oscillator, then I get the situation that because I use this value to change the pitch, then on the next cycle it will have a different value, and on the next another different value, and this will depend on each other, and that way it will basically create randomness. And it
Could you explain why the values are different? Because the height of the transient is the same. Huh?
Yeah. No, not really. Like, so this is the waveform and the moments where we resync. So imagine that we have a very slow, and we resync basically to this zero line. Now, if this waveform comes here, the secondary waveform just happens to sort of arrive at this point, and then it's forced back to this point, it will sample this value. But this value is a positive value. It will increase the pitch of the secondary oscillator, so maybe in the next cycle it will go like this and sample this value, which has now become a negative value. So that will slow it down, so then again it sort of starts to go slowly up here, and again sample another value that is probably slightly different from this value, or maybe a lot different from that value. So for every cycle of the waveform you get a different pitch of the secondary oscillator. So if I slow this process down, you hear that it sort of samples another value. And that is basically what, if you look at it statistically, you will get true random values. So there's no repetition in that anywhere officially.
Yeah, so the sample and hold output of that second oscillator is continually feeding these transients back because it's modulating the frequency of the second oscillator, which is where you achieve that.
Exactly.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so that's just an extra feature, which is of interest for people that want this kind of sort of old-fashioned arcade game kind sounds or stuff like that.